close, I wanna hear your heartbeat. I wanna feel your breath on my cheek. Pull me in, draw me closer. I wanna hear your heartbeat. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. I'm very tired. It is Monday, and in case you didn't see my last week's reading vlog, this is the exact same angle and spot you'll be probably getting for the rest of time because it is the most easily accessible spot that looks the best without having to go into my office and set everything up. At the end of last week's reading vlog, I started The Sword of Shannara, and then I swiftly DNF'd it. If you go on Goodreads, all of the reviews are like 1 star. I don't know how that book has above like a 1-star average on Goodreads. So I think I'm just gonna reread the second book at some point, rewatch the show, and leave myself with like the nostalgia of the second book and not try to force myself to read the first and third one. I then subsequently started my reread for Love Her or Lose Her. As you can see, possibly, I have decided to tab. I don't always do this for rereads, but this is a book that I know I'm going to reread over and over again. This is gonna be like Birthday Girl, where I listen to it like 6 times in a year, or I read it like 6 times in a year. The blue is for times that made me emotional, and the purple is times that I loved, specifically scenes where Dom does little things for Rosie. So if you didn't know, this is a marriage and trouble romance between Dom and Rosie, and in the beginning of the book, Rosie is working as a perfume salesperson at the mall, and she has a bad day, and she ends up getting hit on by this guy, and it kind of was like a little bit of a wake-up call for her that her marriage is she's not getting what she wants from her marriage. So she goes home and tells Dom, who's her husband, that she wants the marriage to be over. She packs up and leaves, and then later on he comes to her and says, like, I'll do whatever I need to do. I don't want this marriage to be over. And so they ended up start going to marriage counseling. And this was like emotional for me the first time, and it's been more emotional for me the second time because I am reading it physically, whereas I listened to the audiobook the first time. Dom is extremely relatable to me. He is the definition of an alpha male, but he was raised in a household where his father never really had any like emotional, like outward emotional persona. He never really talked about his problems. He just provided, and that's what you're seeing with Dom. Is he feels like as long as he's providing for Rosie, that's all she needs, and because she is unhappy, that means that he didn't provide enough. And like there's just a lot of lines in this that make me really emotional because I am familiar with this personality. He's a veteran, he was in Afghanistan, and so when he came back, Rosie felt like he was a different person, and he felt like a different person. And he briefly talks about the weight of all of the people that he saw not come back, the weight of their lives and what they wanted to do with their life, and like, is he even worthy? So like, you're dealing with a lot from Dom, a lot of emotional stuff that he's just like not really acknowledging. And as someone whose entire family has been in the military, has seen war and things like that, and like men who are just like fit Dom very well. I have a partner that is pretty similar to Dom, so I'm just very familiar with his character, and it's really emotional to see him in pain, because I understand, and it's very hard for me to read, but I'm really, really loving it. I got 121 pages in last night, and I was already pretty emotional. And then I also need to continue my buddy read from Lukhov with Love. I'm buddy reading this with Letitia, and I got about 5 or 6% of the way in. And this is about our hero and our heroine, and in the beginning of the book, the heroine is ice skating. Get told that she had a little bit of problems like making it as a professional ice skater. She hasn't had a partner in a while, and then this famous ice skater who she grew up with comes to the rink and asks her to be his partner. And she doesn't have like the best history with him. They don't really like each other. And that's where I'm at, like just at the part where he asks her to be his partner. And this is like a 500-page book. And like you look at the reviews and people are like, this is so slow burn that it like gave me a stomach ache. So I'll be interested to see how this goes. We're reading 50% this week and then reading the rest at our own pace. Hopefully if it's good, it shouldn't be that hard to read. But those are kind of like the two that I have a set that I want to get to. I also want to get to foxglove. Kingpin foxglove. Yes, this was recommended to me by Letitia, and I don't know much about it. All I know is I think it's the Russian mob. I don't know. She's been trying to get me to read Russian mob books for months now. So I think that's what that one is about. But those are like the only three that I have set my mind on. I do need to go through my audiobooks. I've like been very into music lately. Well, this album specifically, but when like my mental health is like going a certain way, I listen to that album because it's like very cathartic for me, I guess. So I've been like really into music, but I need to get back into audiobooks. If you don't know this about me, I have a degree in psychology. I say my 3 hobbies are psychology, animals, and books. I'm very, very, very into all 3 of those things, but I'm a massive, massive animal rights advocate, and animals are a massive part of my life. And the brain, like I'm constantly watching videos about psychology and things like that. So I went on my library. I know you don't care about any of this. I went on my library and I looked up a bunch of books to see what they have that I can listen to. So I'm gonna go through and read those. If you would be interested in me talking in depth about the books that I read, like the psychology based books that I read, just let me know whether you'd like them in vlogs, whether you want me to do sit down videos discussing them so that they're their own thing or what. Just let me know. I'm going to find one of those books. We'll talk about it whenever I find it. But that's kind of the reading plans. I've been rambling for 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go to work and we'll talk later.
Only to feel my love. What have we been through? Separate from what we know, our chemicals flowing, carry it away. Make sure you stay the same.
Please excuse the sunlight, but I just finished Love Her or Lose Her, and still 5 stars, still fantastic. I loved it just as much. I love it more, I think, because there are things that I don't remember from when I read it in June of this year. It's only been a couple months, but I love this. Like, the evolution of their relationship is just absolutely gorgeous. And I think because the first time I read it, I was so focused on Dom because I related to Dom so much that I didn't notice the things that Rosie was doing as well. There's the incredibly, why does that sound weird? Incredibly impactful scene in therapy where Rosie realizes that she has not been contributing to the relationship and that it's not just Dom's fault that their marriage was unhappy and that Dom might have not been as happy or content with their relationship as maybe she thought that he was, and that she really needs to be putting some effort in and that she hasn't been. And that scene is incredibly emotional, I think, because you really understand how much Dom loves her in that situation, and you also understand the depth that Rosie loves him and that she hasn't really been able to look outside of herself, and she hasn't thought about his feelings for a very long time. And so she has this moment where she realizes that for 5 years she's been selfish and that she hasn't considered his feelings. And it's a really emotional and impactful scene. I will say this is a romantic comedy. I'm pretty sure Tessa Bailey only writes romantic comedies, or at least like her traditionally published ones. This feels more emotional to me than the first one did. And I don't know, that's because of the subject matter, if I relate to Dom more, if I just love this couple more, or if like it genuinely is just a more emotional scenario. It feels a little more high stakes, right? I know like they're gonna end up together, like it's a romance, we know that's gonna happen, but I think because they're already married, they have so much love, and they've been together so long that it just feels more emotional. And I don't know, I don't think it's as like funny. There is some like witty banter and things like that, and you do have like that small town vibe that the first one had, but it doesn't feel as like much on the comedy end as the first one did. But I just like, I already cannot wait to reread this whenever I pull it from my TBR jar again. But I cannot say enough good things about this. I'm not someone that loves romantic comedy books. So when I picked this book up, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. And I think the fact that I read this first really endeared me to her writing, and I think that's what made the first one so successful to me. Like I said in last week's video, I think if I had read the first one first, I still would have continued on with the series, but I think this book really solidified for me that I enjoy Tessa Bailey's writing, and that emotional component with the more bantery comedic elements, like that's what I need. I need that emotion, I need that like grittiness, I guess. I need that like angst. And yeah, I love this, and I think their relationship is beautiful. And just like people that complain about the first one, I can understand why you wouldn't like the alphaness of Dom, but I think that just is kind of the MO for Tessa Bailey. I think that's what she likes in heroes. It's what I like in heroes. So I think if you don't like that alpha-ness, you probably wouldn't have gotten to this one regardless, because if you didn't like the first one, you probably wouldn't have continued on with the series. That's not necessarily always the case, but I think generally, if you're a non-romance reader, you probably didn't pick this book up. But yeah, other than that, like, I love this. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think the transformation of their relationship is just so gorgeous. It speaks to what therapy can do. It speaks to what open communication and the desire to better yourself for yourself, but also for your relationship and longevity of happiness is just like, it's gorgeous. And I'm incredibly happy that I reread this. I really needed this. And yeah, I mean, I love this. This is like, not to get too personal, but this like 300 and something page book describes like my personal relationship with my partner. My partner, when we first got together, was very much like stiff upper lip. We don't talk about emotions, very like alpha, just like Dom. And over time, and in our relationship, like we've been together almost 6 years, but as he's matured, as I've matured, like as we've gotten older, he has reevaluated the way that he wants his life and his relationships to look, and I've done the same. I've reevaluated things that I want out of a relationship, the value that I put on myself, and the things that I will and will not stand for. And also I've reevaluated how I communicate with other people, that not everything is always going to make sense to me, and regardless of whether it makes sense, if someone needs something, then you either are going to meet their needs and be willing to learn how to meet their needs or you're not. And I think that's why this is personal to me besides Dom, but it just perfectly shows how relationships evolve over time and how it's not a job, but you have to work for it. And like, I don't know what more I can say about this. I think it's fantastic. And I was talking to my partner about this the first time I read it, and I was like, this book made me cry. And he was like, well, why? What about it made you cry? And I was like, just seeing, you know, the capacity for love and seeing that we're all hurting each other in some way, and sometimes we need that wake-up call. And he basically was like, you know, growth is incredibly important, and it opened a larger conversation with us about have to constantly be changing, you have to constantly be evolving and being your best self or whatever, you know, those conversations. But yeah, this is just a fantastic book, and I've been talking about it for 10 minutes, so we're gonna wrap this clip up. But if you haven't read this already, I feel like everybody should read it, and it's a fantastic book, and I'm already really, really excited to read it again. So now I think I'm going to pick up Kingpin's Foxglove, and we're gonna talk a little bit later on. Okay, so all right, so in a previous clip, I was talking about my love for psychology, my degree, all that kind of stuff. And I would be remiss to admit that I don't really talk about my personal life on here. I give you guys clips of ferrets and things like that, but I don't really talk about anything personal besides that. And I feel like that's disingenuous because I'm always an advocate for people talking about what's going on with them and, you know, having a support system, and I haven't really done that. So I have generalized anxiety disorder and depression. I've had depression pretty much my entire life. It's kind of common in my family, and my anxiety started about 4 years ago or something like that. It was largely due to a very not great work environment. And then I eventually got to the point where I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't like just go out with my partner. I would have really bad anxiety attacks. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't get my own groceries. So it got to a really bad point. And then I got this new job, and my new job is great. It's pretty low energy. My boss is fantastic. She's very understanding. Yeah, so it's a great job, but I still deal with the same things that I dealt with, compounded with the fact that quarantine and COVID has made everyone very leery of going outside. I think it was worse for me, and I'm still getting to a point where I feel comfortable leaving my house. For 2 years, a year and a half, I went to work and I came home, as a lot of people did. And now that I am vaccinated, I feel a little bit more freedom. Obviously, I'm not going to like parties and all that kind of stuff. But I feel a little bit more freedom, and that's very nerve-wracking, I guess. But that's not why I wanted to talk today. So I have a very kind of weird family dynamic. I was raised primarily by my mom. My dad was in and out of my life, and at some point he left my life, and it was kind of just sporadic. And so this instability between my parents' marriage left me kind of all over the place. And so my stability really came from my grandparents. I would spend every summer with my grandparents, and they were like really the only stableness that I had. My grandfather in particular was kind of your stereotypical like military guy with his war stories, talking about how he was shot all the time, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so he was really like the strongest father figure that I had. And I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so everybody knows what Alzheimer's means, but last time I saw him was for my uncle's funeral 2 years ago, and he didn't know who I was. And then we got an update from my aunt, and he is currently being tested for prostate cancer, and he doesn't even remember who he is. He doesn't. He doesn't remember his own name. Yeah, so that that has sent me in kind of a tailspin. I have weeks or months where I'll be fine. My general feeling is just kind of meh. And then there are times where it's exhausting to get out of bed or to do anything. And my anxiety, the relief of my anxiety, or part of my anxiety, is being in a dirty environment. I can't stand it. There have been times where I have been laid out in bed and I still force myself to get up and clean because I hate dirtiness. Even like I'm looking at my partner's socks on the floor and it's like driving me crazy. But that's a large part of anxiety for me. And then part of my depression is that it's like physically exhausting to get out of bed. And I have anxiety nightmares. My most common one is that I push my teeth out with my knuckles. My other one is my partner leaving me or cheating on me and me discovering that he cheated on me. And then I now have this new one it happened twice last night, and then it happened last time I was feeling anxious, is me being involved in a school shooting. Now, I've been out of school for a while now. It's been some years. But yeah, and last night I had 2 of those nightmares. So all of that is to say that that's kind of my day today. Some days I'm just good. I have, you know, animals to take care of. I have other things that I deal with, and I'm good and I can get up and I can do it. And then there are situations that I get in that kind of heighten my anxiety. And then there are days or weeks where it feels too overwhelming to do anything, to exist. And yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen with my grandfather. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know what to do. So yeah, I hope that this clip is okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch it back in editing. So yeah, so that's the deal on that. And if you struggle, if you deal with something similar or something completely different than me, then you know, you're not alone. And some people put it all out there, which is great. Some people put nothing out there, which is also okay. You are allowed to have your boundaries, and I just wanted to, I don't know, practice what I preach, and hope that somebody watching this doesn't feel alone. So, all right, I'm gonna go to work now. Wednesday, and while at work today, I finished Kingpin's Foxglove, and I super enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. So this is basically about the heroine who, in the beginning of the book, her husband, who is the something involved in the Italian mafia, he gets killed by the hero, who is the leader of like the Russian mob in the US. And he takes her and is like, go back to Chicago, and she realizes that, I mean, she doesn't want to go back to her family, and so she says, I'll cure this person in your family that's sick, and in return you'll grant me my freedom so I can leave and do and go wherever I want. And he agrees, and so she goes to, you know, cure this person, and he builds her a lab and a library, and he's like right off the bat obsessed with her. Like, he's been obsessed with her for a while, and it's so fucking good. The hero is your like cold mafia man, but he's like loves animals, and he has horses and he has cats and dogs, and just like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love their relationship. The heroine is like pretty much exactly what you would expect like a woman in the Russian mob to be like. She's very cold, and at times she's very apathetic, and she doesn't really seem to care about anybody but herself, but it's lovely. I recommend it so much if you're looking for a mafia book. Highly recommend this. It is very stationary, so if you are not interested in things like that, this does take place on his farm, but there is like a murder mystery plot going through it, because there is women that are being killed, like mob women that are being killed, and they're being found without their teeth. So there is like a underlying murder mystery story plot line, words, going on that kind of brings it along, but it's good. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. I told Letitia, she's the reason I read this, that she was going to be my guinea pig, and she was going to read the second book first and then tell me if I should read it, because I finished this one and then I went to Goodreads to go to the second one and add it to my TBR, and it didn't have the best reviews. So she's going to be my guinea pig and read it and then tell me if I should read it or not, because that girl has the pulse on my reading taste, because she'll be like, don't even bother reading this. This isn't for you. Audiobook that I picked up was this one. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically about neurology and how the makeup of your brain can do different things for you. Like the first story is about people who have like really strong talents that relate to memory. So a guy that can remember every single day of his life, and if you're like, oh, what happened March 12th, 1991, he can tell you everything, the day of the week, how the weather was, like everything. He can tell you down to the minute, like what his day is like. And so it's just stories about different, not necessarily all about memory, but different stories about how the makeup of your brain can affect your talents and abilities and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. I'm only a couple hours in. I have about 6 hours left. I'm going to start The Stolen Heir because Letitia and I are going to read Brutal Birthright series together. So I'm going to start that. I'm tempted to start Tools of Engagement as well, but I think I'm going to save that until next week. I do need to go back to my TBR video and see what books I drew. I did draw The Stolen Heir, but I think, if I remember correctly, there was a paranormal romance that I drew. I also have some historicals that are on my TBR as well. And then we're not going to talk about the big hulking Brandon Sanderson fantasy that's also on my TBR. Probably going to pick up Marrying Winterborne for my physical book, the second book in the Ravenel series, and then I'm also probably going to pick up The Stolen Heir as my ebook, and then continue that neurology book for my audiobook. Do you ever have moments where like you'll finish a sentence and then you'll think about like, did that even make sense? That's like what's happening to me right now. Anyways, I'm sure this has been shaky as fuck, and me editing Ashley is gonna yell at past Ashley, this Ashley, for not putting you up on a tripod, but this is where we're at. I'm gonna go read. I am 46% of the way through Stolen Heir, and while this feels very unpolished and very much not like the more sophisticated writing that I'm used to from Sophie Lark, I am enjoying it. There is some witty banter going on that very much reminds me of like an action movie. If you have seen the new King Arthur movie with the dude from Sons of Anarchy, the way that they frame conversations, and it's just very like fast-paced and witty, that sort of reminds me of that. Miko, well, we're gonna say Miko, and Nessa, and she is the sister to a guy from the Kellum from the first book, and in the beginning of this one we see Miko joining the Polish mob, and he has plans to kidnap Nessa as a like revenge for someone that died in the first book. He kidnaps her, and they haven't really had that many interactions. They've had one, but other than that, like, we're just seeing Miko try to plan his revenge on her family, and she's kind of just like dancing. She's very much taking she's like a ballet person, and she's very much taking all of her frustration and fear and all of that and making a ballet choreography. I don't know the word for that. Like I said, I'm 46% of the way through, and it's okay. I don't love it, but it's more entertaining than like other mafia books that I've read. So I'm gonna continue, and I know that the series gets exceptional, so I am just holding out hope. Maybe it gets better from here. It's just kind of, it's fast and like it doesn't feel as slow plot-wise as it is, but looking back, nothing has really happened. Yeah, I'm just taking it one page at a time, I guess. So I will update you when I'm done. Good morning, friends. It is Wednesday. What? It is Friday. I hope everybody had a wonderful week and is looking forward to the weekend. I finished The Stolen Heir. Letitia, if you're watching this, please look away because I'm about to explain why I gave The Stolen Heir 3 stars. Kind of what I alluded to in my last clip, you can tell that this is maybe an older one from Sophie Lark. This story is structured very weirdly. The switch over from her being captor, hating him, into loving him was a little abrupt. I get the banging. I get the banging aspect, like the wanting to smash. I get that. She gets to the like, I want to stay with you forever part a little too fast. And then they wrap the book up at 70%, and then the rest of the book is them getting to know each other. I would have just liked if at the point where he's releasing her, she had just wanted to explore the relationship more. Maybe they had some more hookups, and then she realized, or maybe they had some more hookups and he involved her a little bit more, and then she realized, hey, I want to explore more of the relationship, and then they loved each other later. But it just felt very weirdly structured. The getting to know each other was more ingrained into the beginning of the book. It would have made more sense. I think all of her books are written in present tense, but for some reason, like I prefer past tense. It's not usually something that annoys me, but it was very obvious to me that it was written in present tense. And I don't know how to like fully explain that feeling, but it just like pulled me out of the story every time because I felt like something was weird, like something was off, something was wrong. I am definitely going to continue. Letitia and I have full plans to read Sophie Lark's backlist. This definitely didn't make me not want to read Sophie Lark. This just was not the strongest, and Letitia loved this one, but I'm gonna go get ready for work. I'm gonna go to work. I didn't start Marrying Winterborne yet, and I don't know what ebook I'm gonna start, so I don't really have any other book updates for you. I haven't listened to any more of my audiobook, so we're gonna talk later. Friday night, and my partner is out of the house, so we have the whole house to ourselves. Not that that is really changes anything. I haven't read anything. I was listening to this podcast. It's probably one of my new favorite podcasts that I would recommend if you were interested in podcasts and psychology. And then I also was reading a novella from like a novella that one of my friends wrote. That was fantastic. If it ends up coming out, if she ends up publishing it, then I'm gonna be hyping it up because it was good. But that means that I haven't really read anything that I had planned to read. So I think I'm gonna start Marrying Winterborne. My next move is to read one of my TBR books, which I know one of them was A Lesson in Thorns, one was Hollow Heathens, and the other one was some like paranormal thing. So I'm going to start Marrying Winterborne and probably A Lesson in Thorns. It is Saturday night, and I have read 3 books since we last talked. I am 50 pages into Marrying Winterborne, and I'm enjoying it just like I expected to. But the 3 books that I finished, the first one was Psycho, which is the book that the movie by Alfred Hitchcock is based on. There's certainly a conversation to be had about pop culture's influence in mental health, and specifically in this case what people call multiple personality disorder, or what people think schizophrenia is like. Putting that aside, right, because we can recognize that pop culture has a negative impact on the way people view mental health, but we can also look at things as the media that they are without the cultural impact. I gave this 3 stars. The book itself is actually pretty short. The audiobook for it was maybe 4 hours. I think it was like 2 hours. But it's about Norman Bates, who runs a motel, and he has a mother who is very judgmental and has raised him to believe some very archaic things about women and sexuality and all that kind of stuff. And those things come to fruition. We see in the way that the first murder takes place. A woman who has stolen money from her work has gone on the run, and she is now staying at the Bates Motel, and she ends up getting murdered. So that's kind of that premise. I gave it 3 stars. I have seen both movies, the original and the remake, with what's his name from Dodgeball. I have also watched the TV show, so I'm like very familiar with the story. It was nice to read the original text, I guess, that all of the media was inspired from, but it just wasn't that interesting. Obviously, like, some of the language used is not great. So I then read Night of the Mannequins, which was very weird. Again, another short one. It's about this group of friends told through one POV. This group of friends had, I guess, saved a mannequin from one of their friends' works and like made it part of their friend group. They would pull pranks with it and stuff like that. And then the last prank they're gonna pull for their senior year using this mannequin kind of goes wrong, and that's really all I'll say. It's very short, very weird. I would recommend. I read The Only Good Indians, I want to say last year, by the same author, and it was good. His writing has like a very just unsettling atmosphere. The Only Good Indians is a lot to do with nature kind of getting revenge, a lot of unsettling language, and the way that the stories are told are very unsettling. So this one was no different. I would recommend if you are interested in horror. Short, and I really enjoyed it. And then the last thing that I read was Dad's Best Friend. This is the 3rd book in that series. I've read the first one. I haven't read the second one. Probably going to read it around Christmas time. But it's basically about a woman who has taken over for her father. He has recently retired. They have some sort of like building construction company possibly. And she has to recruit her dad's best friend to like do this project, and Daddy Kink, I think that's it. Very much same just as like the first one. So I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Just like kind of your typical Katie Robert read, written incredibly well, enjoyed the characters. I need to read a book for another video, but I do want to continue this. Like I said, I am 50 pages in, and this is the 2nd book in the Ravenel series, and I don't know how much I talked about this in my last clip, but I read the first book, I would say maybe earlier this month or last month, whenever I did my historical romance video vlog. I read it for that video. I gave that one 3 stars. I didn't super enjoy it. I didn't find that the relationship was that great, but that one definitely sparked my interest in Winterborne, because in that one there is a lot of caretaking between Helen and Winterborne, and we see maybe some domineering traits from Winterborne, and Helen is extremely sweet. But there's some of that like fire there, I guess. And so we are at the beginning of this, and they have decided that they want to get married, but they know that after the events that transpired in the first one between Winterborne and Kathleen, who's the heroine in the first one, that Devon, who's the hero in the first one, will not approve. Devon is her cousin. And so they decide to ruin her, to like, I guess, force Devon's hand to allow Winterborne to marry her. I'm enjoying this a whole lot more than I did the first one. I find both of their characters very interesting, and I'm excited to see how their relationship works. So far, we've just kind of seen the like displaced feelings from the first one, like how the first one ended. But yeah, I'm enjoying this. So I think my goal is going to be to finish this, as much of this tonight as I can, and then finish it up tomorrow, because I do have the other book that I need to read for my other video. So that is the plan. I hope you guys had a lovely Saturday, and we will talk later. It is Sunday and I'm here to wrap up this reading vlog. I just finished Marrying Winterborne and I have decided to give this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. This was everything that I wanted, and if you are curious, page 362 absolutely destroyed me. If you have the paperback version, yeah. I really like this. I think that they were a fantastic couple. Their chemistry was fantastic. I was a little bit concerned because there is that early hookup slash like them getting together early, and usually that doesn't really work for me because it like breaks a lot of the tension, but there was so much tension between themselves and also like internal conflict with each other that I think that it worked really well for me. Lisa Kleypas's writing is just on another level. It's beautiful and their relationship was perfect. So I'm very excited to continue on. Helen, who was raised very sheltered, and her sisters were raised very sheltered, and then in the beginning or the end of the last one, there is something that happens that brings Winterborne into her life, and she kind of takes a caretaker role for him. Now Winterborne is a man that was raised very poor child, and so he has kind of made a name for himself, but he knows that society doesn't view him in high standing because people that make their money rather than have their money from like family or whatever, new money, nouveau riche people are frowned upon. And so he has always wanted to marry someone that is high up in peerage because he like wants that status, I guess. And so that is the situation that Helen presents to him, but he feels a sense of comfort with her as well, something that in like an attachment with her that he hasn't really felt with anybody else. And Helen isn't really babied by him, which she really likes because she's kind of viewed as like this fragile bird, and I think he realizes that she is a powerhouse as well, just in her own way. So I loved them. I loved this second book in this series, and I'm very excited to continue on. I'm excited to read about the twins books, and yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend this series if you like historical romance. And if you haven't read it already, just get past the first one. If you read this and you didn't really like the first one, it does get better. I know everybody says that, but it does get better, and this is a testament. I gave the first one 3 stars and I gave this one 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, highly recommend. But that is it for all of the books that I am going to finish for this vlog this week. I hope you enjoyed. Leave your comments down below on anything that I read in this video or anything that you read this week. I would love to know. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.